In the year 1994, Bungie released a first-person shooter called Marathon, and people loved it. In the year 2026,
She jumped out.
it looked like she went down the stairs, I'm sorry.
Kill herself, you fucking virgins, bro.
I will! Bungie released a first-person shooter called Marathon, and people did not love it so much this time. However, tricky thing about that, a lot of people you see online hating on the game have barely played it or have no proof of ever playing it at all. So what gives? Is the game actually good? Who actually knows? Has anyone played the game at all? I have fantastic news for you. My name is Tap. I have 222 hours on Marathon, and today I have some opinions. First off, to answer the most basic question you could ask, do I think that Marathon is good? Yes. I really enjoy it. I think there's a lot of things for people to enjoy, and I hope more people try it and just give it an honest shot. But that isn't to say that everything has been perfect in Season 1. This video is not going to be entirely positive. I do have some criticisms that, while I think they may not be huge problems right now, are some things that could become really big pain points in the future. However, some of those are first world problems from having 220 hours, and some of them I feel like are just growing pains. I mean, it's the first season of the game. As of right now when I'm recording this, the game has only been out for 2 damn months. I understand that a lot of these things are going to improve, and with how fast Bungie has responded to any and all feedback about this game, I'm pretty confident that some of these issues are just not going to be a problem anymore in the next year or so. However, with that being said, I do want to start out with some positive things. First off, and probably most importantly to a lot of people, I think the gameplay of this game feels really, really good. One of the big criticisms that the game got in its public playtest is that the movement didn't feel very good and the stamina bar was way too restrictive. I don't think that's true at all anymore. Even with no upgrades to your heat bar, the movement feels pretty good in my opinion. The gunplay is absolutely phenomenal, as it is in pretty much every Bungie game that has ever existed. I honestly can't think of a single gun in Marathon that feels bad to shoot. Obviously, some guns are better than others, but for the most part, every gun feels really good. On top of that, I think the game is also visually really stunning. I know that is apparently a pretty big hot take from what I've seen online. I really liked the art style. I think there's some really beautiful moments in the game, and the classic Bungie skyboxes that just take your breath away when you're playing are, of course, still present in 2026. And also, the sound design is really good as well, and I think complements the gameplay and the world that Bungie has built very well. The community surrounding the game has also been really great. I've had a lot of really good prox chat moments with people, even though I did see that some people were doubtful their first times playing the game, saying they almost never run into people using prox chat. The reality is, if you want to talk to people, you just gotta slam that button. There's not a lot of toxicity, although there is definitely some, like there is in every game. And on social media, honestly, to my surprise, a lot of people are just really chill and just want to talk about the game and how much they enjoy it, rather than have super big heads and big egos about the game all the time and just shit on people for whatever. Of course, there are still some people like that out in the community, but it seems like instead of how it is with the Destiny community, a lot of those people aren't really getting much of an audience. People just don't really want to listen to them. They just want to play Marathon and chill, and that's been really great to experience, honestly. I have heard of some pretty cringe behavior, such as people Q-sniping into each other to make big teams and just run over the entire map without giving them a chance of being friendly or anything at all. But at least in my experience, these cases are pretty rare, and there's a lot of actual natural teaming which happens, and that is super cool whenever it does. I feel like a big part of the social aspect of the game is Rook. If you ever just want to casually mess around and have fun with people, you can just go Rook on Outpost, and yeah, it might take a few games since people are really bloodthirsty on that map, but if you just prox chat at people you could end up teaming with other rooks or sometimes entire teams, and it's super fun. I mean, just earlier today, I was playing Outpost on Rook, and I think it was me and 5 other rooks in one team were just clearing Pinwheel together. And in a game that's so PvP focused and designed to make people aggressive towards each other, it's just really cool to have experiences like that, and I'm really glad that the community is allowing that to happen. Getting into our first kind of negative thing, I think that the story of Marathon so far is pretty good, but I am not all that happy with the way that it is presented. The Codex is a really cool way to tell stories, but I don't think it should be the main way. For example, there's this Codex entry that has this really cool dialogue of a cult that was made around the compilers, all talking and having a meeting, and it just feels like an oversight that's just something that you can go find in the menu instead of something that you could go find in the game world. I would really, really like if for some of the voice Codex entries, I could just go find a radio somewhere on Dire Marsh and have some prompt to listen to the recording and then listen to these things in game. I feel like it would make the world feel a lot more alive, and just having some more of that story present in the game itself instead of out in the main menu screen would be really, really nice. I also expected quite a lot more story-wise from priority contracts, but it doesn't really feel like much happens with them. Granted, it is the first season, and there are quite a lot of priority contracts right now. I mean, Arachne didn't even get any, so clearly they aren't done with them, and this is just a first iteration. But in the future, I would really appreciate to have actual meaningful storylines happen in the priority contracts. I also feel like this story problem is kind of at its worst on Cryo Archive, which is where it should matter the most. You don't really get any dialogue or interaction with Durandal in the actual game on Cryo Archive, and the story of it can just go completely over your head because it doesn't tell you what's going on. If you want to know what's going on, you have to go read all the Codex entries for the AI subroutines, and for the compiler trace, and for the compiler ganglion. And yeah, people who want to know the story are always going to go seek things like that out, but I just feel like it would be a lot nicer to have those things in-game, because it's not only cooler, but also exposes more people to the story and gets them invested. Although I love My Name is Bife, I don't really want this to be another game where when I'm getting somebody into it and they're interested in the story, the best way for them to go consume it is for me to send them 10 Bife videos. It just shouldn't be that way. You should at least be able to get some of the story in the actual game. Because not everybody is gonna just want to sit in the main menu and not really do anything while they listen to all the Codex entries and read through all the ones that don't have audio. I am probably getting a bit nitpicky with all this. I understand that Bungie has a very particular way that they like to tell their stories and that they want to tell this one. I just think this game would benefit a lot from having some better presentation of the story. A big focus with all of their advertisement for Marathon was the mystery of what happened to the colonists on Tau Ceti and figuring all that out, and it just doesn't really feel like you're making any progress at all in the actual game itself by just exfilling random items. It's good that the Codex exists and has all of that story inside of it. I hope that doesn't go away. I would just like to see some of the effort that they've put into the Codex go more into the actual game itself, even if it is just items you pick up to listen to dialogue. I think that's all I really have to say about the story, and I wanted to move into talking about the balance of the game and the meta in general. And I'm not gonna lie, while even with the meta that we have had in Season 1, I think the game is very fun, but I also don't think this meta is very good or makes very much sense. Pretty vague, but I have a really good example of what I mean by the meta not making much sense to me. The Copperhead is one of the rarest guns in the game, partially because nobody wants to use it. It is a light ammo SMG that is pretty difficult to find. I've only very rarely seen it on, I think, just Outpost and Cryo Archive, although I'm sure it has spawns in other places. And that gun is probably the single worst weapon that you could use in a PvP engagement. Dude, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's bugged or if it really does do that little damage, but this thing is a pea shooter. It does nothing. You can put an entire mag into somebody's head and they will not go down. It is kind of ridiculous. However, of course, the Copperhead is not the only SMG in the game. There's also the Bully SMG, which is absolutely insanely overpowered. The Bully uses heavy rounds, which gives it an advantage over the Copperhead in PvE already, because heavy round weapons can just stagger UESC every once in a while and just make them unable to do anything to you. And in PvP, the gun just absolutely shreds. A gray Bully with no attachments or anything is already a really solid all-around gun. And you can give the thing 40 meters of range! Now, I don't think that this gun needs nerfed into the ground or anything. It probably sounds like I do think that with the way I'm talking about it. The reason I'm talking about it the way I am is because the Copperhead is one of the rarest guns in the game, and the Bully is one of the most common ones, and it is leagues and bounds better. It doesn't make any sense to me. The best way to get Copperheads would be finding a Copperhead schema, which gives you a couple of them that you can buy in the armory, and you can just buy as many Bullies as you want from Traxxas all the time. You always have a Bully. And while in the shotgun world, the Waster did receive some pretty big nerfs, it was the same case with the Waster and the Mizraya. Why would you have ever used a Mizraya before the Waster got nerfed? The Waster was just better. I feel like having these just extremely easy to get guns being so good really soured some of the experience for me. It didn't really feel like my rarer loot mattered, with the exception of gold mods and gold shields and things like that. Because if I found a Mizraya or I found a Copperhead, I just didn't take it. It's the same thing with the railguns. The railguns are a bit more of a popular choice now, but I still don't think they're going to be better than the Outland. The only places where I feel like it makes sense is with the assault rifles. I mean, the Overrun AR is not a very good gun, but the M77 is pretty damn good. I would say it can challenge the Bully in some cases. And there's also the Impact, which is super good, but you're definitely going to want some recoil attachments for it, because my god, is it impossible to shoot otherwise. But for so much of the first season, the best guns in the game have been some of the most common. I think with the Waster changes, Season 2 is going to feel a lot better. But while I don't want the Bully to get nuked, something has got to happen there. Like, they gotta swap the rarity of the Copperhead and the Bully SMG or something like that. I didn't even think about this. There's also the Burnt SMG, which I feel like also isn't particularly good, even though it is definitely rarer than the Bully. I could sit here forever and just go on and on about this. One of the rarest weapons in the entire game, the V99 channel rifle, is just not that great compared to the Outland when it comes to snipers. The channel rifle has a really long charge time and just does about the same amount of damage as the Outland. It's not really worth it. You will probably never win a sniper fight against an Outland with the channel rifle. It's just like a mini railgun. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And another thing relating to weapons in the meta that doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me is gold barters in the armory. Now, I think the armory is a pretty good system, and I think that barters are really good for just using the salvage that you don't need for upgrades anymore. But oh my god, gold items should be rare. They should be pretty hard to obtain. You should not see that many of them during the season. But they are just absolutely everywhere. And it's because it's super easy to just get them out of the armory, at least in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't feel right that I can get a gold mod from Traxxas every day for 24,000 credits just because I completed all of the priority contracts. The priority contracts aren't very hard, and that's just the surface level of it. As far as I'm aware, the armory is there so you have options. You know, if your vault is kind of struggling, but you have a lot of credits, or just salvage to trade, you can just throw stuff at the armory and get gear back. And it's really nice for getting back into runs. However, the armory is also the easiest way to get the most overpowered gear with things like the compiler ganglion barters. You already typically get a ton of gold loot from killing the compiler, but the compiler ganglion just makes it a lot more ridiculous. There's nothing stopping people from holding on to like 50 of these things and just waiting until one day they check their Cyber Acme barters and, oh, I can buy the gold Mizraya mod today, or I can buy the gold Bully mod today. And then all of a sudden, those people who already have so much good loot are just set for the rest of the season. And things like that just don't really feel that fair. These are the people who are already getting tons of gold loot. They're already at the top of the game, the top of the food chain, and they're just getting so much richer. The armory at least feels like it's supposed to serve you when you're down. And it does that kind of effectively, but the biggest thing it does is it makes the rich get richer. I understand that that is kind of a first world problem. If you're a lower level player, as in literally like your level in the game is lower, you're probably not going to run into people who have 50 gold bullies in their vault from killing the compiler and just saving their ganglions. But it's just not something that feels like it should exist in general. Although gold loot is really fun to use and cool to get, I feel like there's just too much of it right now. It's kind of oversaturated. Getting back to a more positive note, after all of that yelling that I just did at my microphone, Cryo Archive is super good. I know I just uploaded a video where I talk about how I would sit in Cryo Archive for 20 minutes and do nothing until teams come to me and my team, but I did actually play the map and participate. I did all the vaults 1 through 6 and got a compiler, and I've had a ton of fun playing the map normally, outside of just doing the Batman strat. It's super good. It is a bit soured by the meta. I didn't even talk about grenades, which are also very common, oversaturated, and very overpowered, and very, very good on Cryo Archive. But despite that, I'm able to just have a lot of fun with the map. It's huge. It's like a maze. The PvP on it is interesting. There's a lot of avenues for you to escape and flank teams. I have made and have seen some super cool plays be made on Cryo. It's a really good map in my opinion. The PvE on it is also pretty interesting. I would like to see more high stakes PvE like the PvE that you have on Cryo Archive in the rest of the game. I think the PvE on Perimeter and Dire Marsh leaves a bit to be desired. Outpost is definitely a step up, but I also feel like there could be just some harder enemies to fight. Maybe a Warden in Command Wing or something like that. In my opinion, Cryo Archive is probably the best map for PvE right now, which is probably not great considering the fact it's only here for 3 days a week, and it can be super hard to survive on that map just because of the sheer amount of PvP and the fact that people have to bring at least halfway decent gear because of the loadout value ante of 5,000. I think in a world where Marathon's close quarters meta isn't nearly as one-shotty and insane, Cryo Archive is going to be a map that a lot of people really love to play. I personally already have been really loving it, even though the close quarters meta is kind of garbage right now. This video is getting a bit longer than I expected. I'm already at 20 minutes of just straight yap. I don't even know how I'm going to do the edit for this without turning it into like a half-hour long video. But I feel like it's impossible for me not to talk about matchmaking for just a second because of how much people have been talking about it. There is very obviously level-based matchmaking. I don't really think there's anyone who doesn't believe that. I don't really think it's a secret. At the very high end, I can see how it could be annoying. When you're like level 200 plus, you're just going to be matching the same people over and over again. That gets boring. I think Bungie definitely should have some kind of solution to that. Like, maybe making it so level-based matchmaking gets a lot more loose after level 100, 150-ish. I think it is mainly streamers and just other people who have poured a ridiculous amount of time into the game who are having a bad experience with level-based matchmaking. I personally think it feels pretty okay. I match a pretty wide range in my games. You know, I'll usually see somebody as low as 90, sometimes even like 75. And at the absolute highest, I'll see 200, 220. I don't really believe in the key-based matchmaking theory. I just think we're at a point in the season where people have a lot more keys. And there's also the carry event going on right now, which allows you to get superior key templates really, really easily. So there's just more purple and gold keys than there were before. And even if more obscure matchmaking things like loadout value and key-based matchmaking and things like that do exist, I think that they're okay as long as they're not too strict and remain pretty obscure. I can definitely sense some people eye-rolling about this take that I'm about to give, but I think as long as we don't know how the matchmaking works, it's not really going to be a problem. A lot of these issues aren't really issues until people start noticing them. Like, yeah, streamers who are level 300 probably shouldn't be getting matched against people who are like level 40, level 50. That's not the problem. The problem is that people know that it exists and they don't like that. I just feel like if Marathon didn't have the matchmaking rules that it has, including matchmaking rules that it may have that we don't even know about, the game would not feel nearly as good to a general wider audience. I understand that it's an extraction shooter and that extraction shooters typically don't have matchmaking rules very much at all from what I understand. But for retention of people who aren't the most hardcore, it's pretty important to have. Finally, after dropping that nuclear bombshell of a take, I just want to say that I'm really optimistic for the future of this game, and even though I've been pretty critical for most of this video, I still think that Marathon is super good. I don't see myself being able to put the game down anytime soon. It could definitely go down a dark path, and it could definitely turn into something that maybe I don't want it to be, or maybe I don't enjoy as much. But at the end of the day, I just hope that more people give this game a shot, and that people actually watch videos like this, and just take the opinions of people who have actually spent time playing the game into account. I don't think it's a secret that Marathon hasn't been the most popular in the public eye for a large number of reasons, some of which are justifiable, some of which I don't think I could really ever understand. And all I can really hope for is that the game stays as enjoyable as it is, and is at least sustainable for Bungie so they can keep making it. There is a worry in the back of my mind that Marathon will slowly pivot away from what I feel like makes the game special and become way more casual than it is right now and not really capture any audience. It's a fine line that Bungie's walking here. It's a very hardcore game, and hardcore player bases are a good thing to have. You want to have people who are committed, but there's gotta be a window for people to play this game more casually. But at the same time, you can't get rid of the hardcore stuff. I do not envy the people at Bungie who are developing this game who are having to deal with sorting out those kinds of problems. I do think that that's all I really have to say. I hope that Bungie gets to keep making this game. I think it's super special. I think there's a lot more people who would enjoy this, who probably have no idea that they would enjoy a game like this at all. So if you were curious about it, give it a shot. I feel like most people who watch all 26 minutes of this video have probably already played the game. But if you haven't, or if you're on the fence, give it a try. I mean, I did not think that I would like it at all. I was very pessimistic about this game for a long time. But it's truly something special. I'm going to stop myself now. I have 26 minutes of just me talking in my FL Studio. I gotta stop the video here. I hope that you enjoyed watching. Have a nice rest of your day. And goodbye.